Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Adobe Live. We are live every weekday from midday until 1 p.m. and it's good to see some familiar faces back. This is a really good session today. As you've seen the title, we are Unfiltered in Lightroom, and we have a fantastic photographer to introduce you today. Welcome, Sebastian.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Sebastian Hughes is a photographer who's based in London, and we're going to be having a tap into what goes on behind the scenes and have a look really about how Sebastian sets up his portfolio and how we're working during this kind of new normal. But first, let's say hello to everybody in the chat. Hey, Sandrine. Hi, Caroline. Hi, Jackie. Liam's here. Kirsty, Robert. So we've got a lot of people back in the chat to see you today, Sebastian. Cool. So your work is absolutely amazing, and I'm really excited for you to share this with our team, our audience today. You've worked with some really big clients.
I have, yeah. I've been quite lucky to work with a few clients, including Adidas, Twitter, Cambridge Audio, McLaren, Audi. So yeah, and that's kind of only in the past few years as well. So hopefully more to come.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I've no doubt about it. And how have you been during lockdown and our new way of living?
Good. It's been quite, it was obviously very worrying, which I think every single creative has felt throughout. But I think it's been quite a nice time to be able to just step back, as I've not been able to photograph anyone because all my work is to do with people. I've been able to step back and kind of look at my work, speak to a few people and kind of strip it back to kind of where I want to see myself going in the future, rather than having everything I've got. I've kind of streamed it down to everything I like and feel happy about presenting.
Definitely. And I think it's such a good time actually just to go back through old footage and even repurpose images in a different way and challenge yourself creatively. Shall we share some of your work?
Yeah.
It's really good. Please, talk us through some of the.
So yeah, this is just my kind of most recent work that I've showcased on my overview page, and yeah, this is mainly my commissions, and there's a couple of personal projects in there as well. So if we start with my most recent personal project, Polar, and I was working with two very talented ballet dancers, Natasha on the left and Kanika on the right, and I was just kind of looking for the yin yang of movements between the ballet dancers. So this was actually inspired by, without kind of sounding too egotistical, some old work that I'd shot, where I'd created accidentally two images where that had a black and a white background with opposing dress, and basically that inspired me to go into the ballet dancers, as I thought I can then capture the movements which mimic. So if you look on the image on the left, it's kind of flowy with the arms, and then on the right it's a bit more movement with the legs. So that kind of went through throughout the project. But it was quite difficult at first with the ballet dancers, as they're very, very specific with their movements.
Yeah, you really captured how graceful it is. And Kirsty's actually said in the chat, I've seen Sebastian's website and it is amazing. So already some good comments coming through. And, the work here, how did you decide to lay it out in this way to showcase your work?
So I used InDesign, which I'm a massive fan of. I kind of use InDesign, and after I'd captured everything, I laid it all out. So I think there was Let me do a quick math. I think there was 16 images for each model, so it's 32 images in total. So I laid out all the images with the models. So where you've got Kanika on the left, she also had the similar shot of doing what Natasha's doing on the right. And I basically laid them together, saw which was the best, and then I moved them then again into my final 8. I think it was. I was actually 10 with the portraits. So yeah, it was definitely a long process, but it was definitely worth it because I needed to retouch the images, and I wanted to make sure I retouched the strongest images and also not waste time by retouching all the other images that I perhaps wouldn't use.
Yeah, and Tim has asked a question. So those dancers, are they holding the pose, or are they actually moving through the routine and that you're taking photos?
Holding the pose. Yeah, so we'd shoot the first 8, which are on white, and then from there we'd do shot 1, which would be the left image, and then shot 2, which would be the right image, and from there we'd then copy exactly the same on the black background. But yeah, they would hold the position, and we'd kind of agree it before what kind of worked. So the first shot would be, say, this image on the left, and then we'd then think about the second image, which would be the almost opposite of that.
These are really great images that you have here, and what you've captured is just amazing. You can really see what you were trying to achieve, that yin and yang of the movement.
And the other thing I've got to add is that I've also did it, so there's the background, the costumes, and there's also the lighting as well. So the white images are lit from the back and the black images are lit from the front.
And do you have a studio that you work from regularly, your own studio? I mean, what's your
I don't. This is actually someone I work with has a studio, so they kind of happily lent it to me for the day.
Oh, I think this is one of the hardest things right now, as you mentioned at the start, for a creative, that we're unable to get out and to set this kind of thing up really. But going back into your early career as a photographer, what ways do you think people can get into studio work like this?
I think assisting is the single biggest way of becoming a professional photographer. So starting out, either getting work experience or even finding an internship or working in a photographic studio, which there are plenty of in London. And they're up and down the country. I know Manchester as well has got a big base, but if you can get in that way, I think you learn so much. I didn't go to university myself. When I was 20, I'd done an art foundation, and then I had the option to go into university. I got a placement, and then instead I chose to do an internship. So I did an internship for 2.5 years, and then from there, I then just carried on assisting. And I think I learned so much and owe so much to the people that taught me everything. Basically is passing on knowledge, which is priceless.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think there are lots of different people that we've met across the Adobe Live streams. Everyone has such different backgrounds, such different experiences. And I think that's one great thing about Adobe Live, actually, that you can hear how other people have gained their experience and learn from their processes and that kind of thing. There's so much appreciation in the chat for your work. Steve has just put in there, fantastic photos. And Sandrine has asked, can you talk us through how you went from assisting to your own work and the path that it took?
So I still am assisting. It's a very slow process. I think everyone rushes to want to make it happen. And I know so many other people, they're in exactly the same position. You want it all to happen all at once, but I don't know, it could span, maybe you could be lucky and it could span maybe a year, or it could maybe even be up to 10 years. But I think the way to do it is to be assisting. You start out assisting as many people as possible. So whether that's a still life photographer, interiors photographer, a sports photographer, portrait photographer, kind of any genre. And then from there, you'll find out what you want to do. And then you work with those, you kind of tighten down the roster that you work with, kind of specifying where you kind of want to be going. And I think that's where I started to learn the business and the industry a little bit more in my kind of niche. And then from there, it's literally just emails. But most of the work you get is from recommendations. So it's just also communicating and just being a good person. And, just being reliable. I think I've met art directors from when I was assisting on jobs, and they've then gone to give me jobs like the Adidas job, and then apologies.
No worries.
There you go. And what else? I think Instagram as well has been a big factor, I think, for moving from that assisting to photography. People then get to see your work, so you'll follow someone that you've been working with, an art director, picture editor. They'll then see your work and then hopefully commission you.
Yeah, and I think the main thing, right, when people are wanting to get started at the beginning is getting that portfolio right and making sure that the first image that people see of yours is going to land with impact. How do you choose your images?
So again, I use InDesign. I think it's such a valuable tool where you can literally move stuff about so easily, and you have all the different pages, and you can just kind of see your work. But I know that a good way of doing it is printing everything out that you have and you want to put in your portfolio in just kind of 6x4s or A6 sizes, spreading it all out, and then just kind of putting it in. I think to begin with, put it in piles of work you like, work you don't like, that kind of doesn't bring you passion or you can't talk about it. I think that's a good way to then just kind of cull off the stuff that shouldn't be in your portfolio, because in a meeting, if you can't talk about your work, then it just doesn't convey a good image of you. I think it's better to talk about something that you love and you enjoy.
Oh, definitely. You can hear it, can't you? The passion that comes through if you really love an image. And what's your favorite thing what's your favorite kind of image to take?
Well, recently it's been nice to be able to get into a studio. I think assisting has allowed me to create contacts where I'm able to get into studios. But I very much like this sort of work that I've got here, shooting in the studio, but I think leaning more towards the portraiture side of things is really key. Like, I've always loved portraits of famous actors, famous people, but not so much for the fact of the person. It's more of the candid side of them that you might not see on screen or on TV. Yeah.
And Sean asks, are these shot on film?
These aren't shot on film. No, this is a bit of post that my partner, who's my retoucher, did. So we just added a little bit of grain afterwards, just because I wanted to make it a little bit raw and gritty to make it stand out. I didn't want a too clean a studio look. I wanted something a little bit raw and grittier.
Yeah. Sandrina's commented actually to say that the Floor series is very nice, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes, I can go to that. That was actually on a recent commission. Yeah, this one.
Oh, that's lovely.
So these were actually outtakes from a commission I did for a brand called Cambridge Audio. And it was just happened to be I had a misfire on my flashes, and it kind of left an image not quite like this, but similar. And then from there, I managed to get like a couple of minutes just at the end to readjust the lights, and then just get these portraits of the models we were shooting. And this here actually is the art director. He's standing in for a test shot.
Oh, cool! It works well. Yeah, they're really great pics. And Corolla mentions in the chat, what equipment do you use?
What equipment? So my digital is, I've got a MacBook Pro. and then I've also got a Canon 5D Mark IV. For this shoot, I think I was using an 85mm lens, just because it's nice to be able to like crop in, and the glass on there is just super crisp. And then for my flash, I use ProPhoto. But depending on the assignment and the job, I'd either use ProPhoto or Broncolor. Broncolor is really good at freezing motion, which is perfect for sport and movement. You can photograph a fast cyclist or a fast runner and just make sure that every hair on their leg is pin sharp and there isn't any movement or anything. And that's key when you're photographing for a client such as Adidas, where they've got a shoe that they're trying to advertise. You want to have that shoe like kind of crystal clear.
Nice. And Gareth is asking, do you use box lights? Are they shutter operated?
Yeah, they are shutter operated. They are wireless, and I do use softboxes. I think for this shot here, I actually use 2 either side of the back, and then I had a beauty dish as well, as kind of like the key light. But yeah, I do use softboxes, if that answers the question. Yeah.
And do you find that you work on the go a lot, or is it really more focused on the studio work that you've shared so far?
It's a bit of both. I mean, I'll have a look and see. I mean, that stuff was very much, both the first 2 shots here were very kind of slow and had time to think about it and pre-light. But there are other things. So the stuff with Lionel Messi, that was very much on the fly, and we're shooting quite candid with him. So yeah, I mean, it changes from assignment to assignment, really.
Yeah, sure. And you've got so much work in here, and you can see that it's, as you mentioned, you use InDesign to lay this out. Do you use Adobe Portfolio as well? Or do you find that this is your main place of, to store all of your images?
Well, so for laying out, I just use InDesign really. I don't really use Adobe Portfolio. And yeah, I host my website with another company.
Wow, cool. And then, during these times then, we've spoken about, the needs for the constant creating. What kind of projects are you working on right now?
I haven't got anything that I've shot yet, but I have got some stuff lined up for the future, but they're both quite slow projects, I think. And I'm just waiting for the right place. So I've got one where I'll be using mirrors and natural light to kind of almost create a studio setup. So using the sun as a flash, as it were, or a strong source of light. And then I've got some other projects coming up that have just simmering away in the background.
Yeah. I do find that if you're going to be photographing people, I'll speak today. Do you have a makeup artist that comes, on? Yeah,
I do have makeup artists. So I used 2 makeup artists on the Fleur shoot on the right here. But I think with any commission, you really need to have a makeup artist. They're just to kind of, I think it just makes everything a little bit more professional, and you have an image side by side of with and without a makeup artist, and the one with the makeup artist always stands out, and it also saves you so much time in post.
Yeah. And how do you find them, by the way? Like, how did you, is it through recommendation that you're picking up these people you work with, or?
Yeah, some are recommendations. So I often go to, if I ever do get stuck, I go to big makeup artists that maybe have an assistant, because I'm still not quite established as much as other people. So I'm still using younger makeup artists, stylists. So yeah, I'd go to another makeup artist who's slightly bigger and ask them if they've got any assistants, and then I'd work with them. And then it's also almost planning for the future. So you kind of create that relationship with them early on, and then with it in the future, you'll be kind of working side by side. And then I also fortunately have a couple of other friends as well who are makeup artists that I've been to either college with or friends of friends.
Yeah. And there is a question here from Sandrine who mentions, so you mentioned that you have a partner that does a lot of the retouching for you. How do you handle that? Like, is it your prerogative to say the colors that you want, or do you hand over and let them take it away?
No, I kind of have control over it first. So basically all I do is when I post-process, I kind of get it to where I want. And then there might be some things that I can't quite get. But yeah, most of it I try and get either in camera or in just kind of the raw converter, as it were. And then from there, I then give all my images to my partner flat. So there's nothing on them. And then she does everything she can in Photoshop. Just because from previously, we found that if anything does need to change, so you do all your post-processing, for example, in Lightroom, if you were then to pass it on, you wouldn't be able to go back as the image has already been retouched.
Yeah. And in terms of this, here we go, this like the finished image, I mean, obviously they all look amazing. You've got some work on Adobe Stock right now. And Tim asks, do you notice a difference between your personal work and other work on Adobe Stock?
Yeah, I think my stuff on Adobe Stock is very much more lifestyle and maybe a little bit more travel orientated, just because it's all the images I use in Adobe Stock from when I have been away or traveling or on jobs. They're kind of the outtakes or the stuff that I don't use in my commercial work. Because a lot of my commercial work I can't use on Adobe Stock as it's either linked with a usage or with a client.
And do you have that here in your portfolio? Is there any of your stock work here?
There is actually this stuff on the left there, the Polar project is on Adobe Stock. So often if I have personal shoots that I know won't get commissioned or are just kind of sitting there on my site, I'll put them up on Adobe Stock as well to see whether anyone kind of likes. I'm trying to think as well if there's any others. Yes, this project Encoil as well is on there. Yeah, I think that's the only ones that are on my site.
No, they're good. Good images. And we were saying actually just before we went live that during lockdown it is a good time to revisit old images and use stock to change those in a different way or look at them in a different way than we have before.
With all the time we've got at the moment, it's kind of a good time to go back throughout your image archive and just kind of scroll through every single image, because there could be plates in there that you've got of a sky that you think, oh, that's just kind of trash, but in actual fact they could be used in someone else's composition, or it could even be used in film and television. They'll sometimes buy them to put as a background plate. So you just never know, and often those awkward ones are the ones which sell.
Oh, totally. I've gone back through so many images and changed grey skies to blue skies, and definitely one for the old wedding photos for sure. Do you know, there is a question here that two people are dying to ask you. So Jackie and Sandrine are both keen to know this. On Instagram, it says that you were a baby model.
I was.
What did you model for?
Farley's Rusks. So if you don't know what they are, they're a baby's biscuit. So there's a picture of me with my arm on a Farley's Rusks box with a massive cheesy grin. They'd obviously just stuffed a load of Farley's Rusks down my throat to make me smile.
I remember that. How amazing! How funny! That's so good. There's some more questions here in terms of stock. Actually, there's a good few questions. So Sean asks, once you upload an image to stock, do you still have the rights to use the image elsewhere?
As far as I'm aware, yes. I guess. I think so.
And can you upload or contribute to other stock photo sites simultaneously?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
Oh, definitely.
But I've actually found that Adobe stock is much better laid out for everything. Just like so much ease, and the fact that it works with Lightroom as well. So I don't use Lightroom in my post processing, but I do use Lightroom for my Adobe stock, and it's just a great way to do the final little touches on images. Or I don't know, sometimes you get to a point where there's just like a little spot or something just in the image, so it's kind of good just to do that. Or you want to recrop something, and then you can just upload it all via Lightroom.
Yeah, and you mentioned, going back to old outtakes and editing those, because they can become, something bigger and add to your portfolio. What else are you doing to stay inspired right now?
Stay inspired. I think I get a lot of inspiration from film and TV with the cinematography. I think that's where I'm wanting to go towards, kind of looking at the cinematography side of things, not in terms of becoming a cinematographer, but I think it's a very good inspiration, because I think it's also part of stills, which you forget, or I forget anyway. It's the storytelling as well. So I think it's kind of good how the reflection of the story should be told within, say, the colors or the lighting, the mood. So yeah, that's basically how I've been kind of keeping my inspiration up. And as well as that, kind of listening to podcasts with cinematographers, podcasts. There's lots of YouTube as well. I think a Hollywood Reporter do quite a good take with cinematographers, where they talk to each other about different aspects of their film.
Yeah, I think podcasts are a really good way actually to pick up tips and hearing actually from other people and their experiences definitely shapes the way we change our processes. Has your process changed much? I mean, Emma asks that in the chat. Hi, Emma. Emma said, has lockdown changed your process?
Has lockdown changed your process? I guess it has. In terms of how I look at my work, I now know where I want to be heading. So perhaps I know that I very much, when I first started testing and shooting personal work, I'd kind of almost like run and gun, where I'd just go and photograph stuff in daylight. But now I know that's not where I want to be going. So I'd be kind of focusing more and spending more time. And rather than having quantity over quality, I'd be looking to have maybe do a project over a longer period of time, rather than doing several projects over a shorter period of time.
Yeah. And all of the work that you're displaying here in your portfolio, what was probably the most challenging project out of everything that you have here?
I'd probably say I keep going back to this polar project, just because we only shot it over one day, but I think it was such hard work in terms of perhaps I maybe made it too complicated for myself, but I had the vision in my head. It was just trying to portray it to other people, and I've kind of struggled sometimes to do that, to portray what I'm trying to talk about to the models. And I think I have learned on jobs and stuff, there's kind of a good thing to just stop, think about it, and even give yourself a minute just to not talk to anyone, not get any interactions or anything, just kind of think about what you're trying to portray and then speak to them.
How do you brief them? Like, how do you get your vision across to the models that you've got? How do you?
I think the best thing to do is to lay out a mood board. And that's what I initially did with this, was I found two images that I then graded slightly to where I wanted to be, and put them together and kind of explained it. But even then, it was still quite difficult with the models to kind of get it. But I think by halfway through the day, well, maybe an hour or two into it, I think it kind of clicked with the models, and they were like, that's what you're after. So it definitely sped up from there. So yeah.
I think it's always the organization at the start, right?
Always. Yeah.
And there are, here we go, there's a little off-topic question for you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from Tim. He says, how do you start your day? Any routines to help you start working that spark inspiration?
Coffee.
Same.
I can't function without coffee, basically. But then I think another good, I'm a keen cyclist. And I think cycling or exercising early in the morning, if you get up, like in the past week, I've been getting up at 5 o'clock to go out cycling. And I think that's a really good way of kickstarting. You kind of get back and you feel like you've done something before 8 or 9 o'clock. You kind of get back and you've started your day. Whereas if I was to do the opposite and say maybe lie in, then I think, I just don't have much motivation. I think exercise and coffee.
Yeah, I'm with you on the coffee for sure. I should probably do more exercise, but
yeah.
And do you know, when you're off out on the bike and you're out, out and about, do you use a different camera to capture any inspiring things on you?
Just my phone. Yeah. But I'm probably a really bad example because I tend not, like even my friends say, like I don't take many pictures when I'm out because I feel like it's too much like work. Whereas all my stuff's quite controlled. So, but I mean, I still do take pictures on my phone. But yeah, my phone.
Sure. Carola in the chat has said 5 a.m. What time do you go to bed?
What time do I go to bed? Probably 10:30, 11. It's definitely it's hard getting up, but again with that cup of coffee in the morning, it kind of, and then also the fresh air as well just knocks it out of you.
Oh, definitely. So what tips, I mean, I know you mentioned at the start of this live session that assisting is a really great way to get into the studio work. What other tips would you give other photographers about getting started?
Keep on shooting. I think that's something I've wanted to do throughout lockdown. It's definitely been hard to get back into things. But yeah, emailing the right people. I think sitting down, trying to figure out who the right clients are for you. What else? I mean, I'm still kind of in that limbo stage, going from assisting to photography. So if anyone else has got any tips, kind of pass them this way as well. Yeah.
Well, please share like a project that you have here in your portfolio, something that really lights you up, something that you're really proud of.
Let's have a look. I think this project. So this is a project for a short film called Sensational Simi. It's about this character Simi. It's commissioned by the BBC and Google Arts, and I was the unit photographer on it. But I also had to create this, which is also a bus poster. So the bus poster is in situ in the film, and it's in the opening shot. So we had, I think it was a couple of weeks before we shot the film, we sat in the studio and kind of created this mock poster. So the story is about this girl, Simi, who is an Olympian athlete, and she's about to go to the Olympics, but kind of gets injured. And then she faces a lot of criticism, and she faces racism as well. And it's basically telling the story of one night where she's waiting at a bus stop, basically, and then kind of the story unfolds. But yeah, if anyone wants to watch it, it's on, I think it's on iPlayer, and it's just called Sensational Simi. But yes, working with a great director. So yeah, this is actually the shot of Simi with the bus poster, and then this ended up being the poster, the promotional poster that was used.
Very cool. And I guess being working with an inspirational kind of director, somebody to give that kind of that guidance, that brief as well at the start. It always helps, doesn't it, to work as a team and bounce off each other and get inspired. what would your dream project be? That was a question that I think Tim asked.
Dream project would be a film. I think a film poster would probably be my dream project. But then I also like these candid portraits of celebrities that you see people like Jason Bell photographing. He's also got a great Q&A that's on Instagram if anyone's interested. And who else? An American photographer, Kurt Iswarienko as well. He's kind of got some amazing work of celebrities or big actors that you kind of, you wouldn't see in a normal light.
Do you ever get intimidated working with celebrities?
No, I think the only time I wasn't so much intimidated. We worked with Christoph Waltz when I was assisting, who's, if you don't know him, he's in Inglourious Bastards, and what's the other film? He's in, what's her name? Django Unchained as well. Yeah. So yeah, he was just, I think just because he was a real force and he was so lovely as well. He's just so down to earth. I kind of forgot that I was working. I was just kind of sat there. We were in a location house, and I was just kind of sat on the step and was just listening to this story that he just started making up about this toy giraffe that happened to be on the table that he was sitting on. I think that's the only time maybe that I've kind of been not so much starstruck, but just realized that I was quite lucky to be there. So.
Wow. I don't know how you keep it cool. I would be a mess. I would be just like, oh my God, you're amazing. No, wow, you've got a lot of appreciation in the chat. Hazel's like, I love him. Caroline's like, Spectre. That was a good film.
Yeah, Spectre, yeah.
Yeah, we could totally see your work at Cannes. I think Emma mentioned that in the chat as well. And there's more questions to come up. What cameras do you use? I know that you mentioned one of the cameras earlier. Do you always have that one, or do you use a different set of cameras for different shoots?
I think say if I was shooting a film poster, I'd probably use Phase 1 camera, which are a medium format camera with a massive sensor. And that would probably be my go-to camera, but I haven't had the commissions right enough yet to have that sort of camera. I do have a small little camera that's kind of my backup, a Sony A6-300, and that's just in there as either sometimes I have to do, like, I have commissions with Twitter and I have to photograph and film at the same time, and that I'll just have on a little tripod because it shoots 4K and it's quite small, so it's not too heavy. And then I think sometimes you do need to get some kits specifically for the job. So I think as well, actually I have used a 1DX Mark II before as well, just because of the most amount of frame rates you can do kind of on an SLR.
Yeah, and you've captured lots of sport. Is there any sporting event that you haven't captured yet that you want to?
Not so much the events. I guess the athletes I'm more interested in. I don't know. I think the Olympics are just kind of, because there's so many different sports, and it's you have the Rugby World Cup, the Football World Cup. They're all quite big athletes, but I think with the Olympics, it's just so different because there's so much camaraderie behind it. So I think shooting the Team GB or something like that would be amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And those Olympic events, obviously they're big events that are taking place that you would go to and get your shots. But if you were on a set, let's say back to the studio, I'm not a photographer, so I imagine that there to be really long days, a shoot taking place maybe from starting really early until really late at night. What's it like? Like, talk us through a typical shoot in a studio. What's a typical shoot?
So if you're lucky enough, you get a day before you shoot. So you have a pre-light day where you can sit down and have time to go through the brief which you would have gone through a numerous amount of times, to basically have time to set up all the kit and then light stuff and just get it kind of bang on to how you expect. And you do that quite often with athletes, because with athletes, you can get them from, say, 3 to 5 minutes all the way up to sometimes an hour. And even if you get them for an hour, you're still got to bang out so many shots. So yeah, you'd have a pre-light day, and kind of get everything locked in, and then the next day you then come in fairly early. And typically, if this is for an athlete would probably come in around lunchtime, so you probably still have a couple of hours, 2-3 hours of testing the lighting again, making sure you get it right, maybe running through as well, because often you'll have to get a numerous amount of shots, say 5 or 6, so you'd almost have a routine of where lights and stuff would change, or you need to move lights. So you'd basically set up one and then run through the shots that you need to get in setup one, and then if you needed to change the lights, you then move the lights. And it's basically just getting a rhythm that the photographer, and all the assistants and grip, and basically just kind of getting it all locked in and ready. And
this
then
is where your assistant comes in, right? The use of the assistant. This is exactly where you pick it up.
And I think that's something. Yeah, with the assistant, you get that from start to finish. You know what's needed, and you kind of know that routine. And it means you can also muck in as well. If you are tight for time, the photographer could just jump up and help out and move stuff.
And Carola asks in the chat, in general, do you work through advertising agencies or directly with clients?
It's a mix of both. So I've worked with a couple of ad agencies, and then also, so I've had a recent commission for Cambridge Audio, and that was directly through them. And then also publishing houses as well. So the stuff I've done for Audi and McLaren, that was through a publishing house in London.
Yeah. I think you mentioned at the start, it's recommendations, just such a huge thing. Building up that relationship with people, making sure that they can see that you're reliable and that you're available, to do that. Tony Harmer's in the chat. Hey, Tony. Tony asks, have you ever had a job that went horribly, horribly wrong? And if so, were you able to laugh it off? Good question.
Not one really comes to mind. I did have, again, we're going back to assisting, I did have a job where, I'm not naming any names, but the shoot got cancelled 4 times because the athlete didn't want to turn up the first 3 times.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but that's kind of a fairly normal thing. I'm trying to think if there's anything that went horribly wrong. I'm sure I have been on stuff, but touch wood, nothing major's happened.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I guess it happens to the best of us, right? There's always going to be something.
And the plus side of it as well is you always get a story out of it. Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I'm sure that everyone in our chat here has definitely had some experiences like this in the past, So Tim asked a question here. And by the way, there's about 15 minutes left. If anyone else has questions, please get it in the chat. It's behance.net/Adobe Live. Tim asks, was there a moment that you knew that you wanted to go down this career path? Was it like when you were at school? When? So when I was 14, my dad gave me, I was still a cyclist then, I was a keen BMXer. So my dad gave me his film camera, and I just went down to the jumps with my mates and photographed them. The images came out and they were pretty much almost black, but I could still see a little kind of friend of mine like kind of jumping through the woods. So from there I kind of learned a little bit more. And then when I was 15, when you're at school, you have to go and do the 2-week work experience. So then I contacted a BMX magazine, who then put me in contact with a studio in London. And then that's when I came up to London, and did 2 weeks work experience in a big studio. I'm trying to think there were some big, I think I saw the studio I was working at the time, there was like kind of Carol Vorderman was there one day, Ricky Gervais, and there's some big magazines as well with Wallpaper magazine was there, Vogue. So I got a good array of kind of clients that I saw there in that first 2 weeks. And then from there, I just kind of knew that that's what I wanted to do, and that's where I wanted to go.
Amazing.
Yeah, so then I just carried on the work experience working with various photographers until I was 20, and then got into full-time.
Amazing. I'm kicking myself now that my work experience is in a florist.
Well, I think I was very grateful that my parents kind of, they didn't push me towards anything. They just kind of advised me, it's like, you could do this, maybe you should get in contact with some magazines that you like. And then it was from there, I was kind of quite fortunate. Yeah, very different to the normal work experience, I think.
Yeah. And Kevin's made a comment. He says that he likes your Twitter UK football images. And he wants to know, how did you set up those shots? Was it in natural light? Yeah, please share those.
Yes, it was natural light. We were quite fortunate to have, I think we had these twins. So these are the Cometa twins. And at the time, one played for West Ham and the other was Gillingham Ladies, I believe. So Twitter UK were doing a shoot geared up towards the Women's World Cup. So we're kind of looking at aspects of women in football. So we photographed these twins, and this was in the afternoon, I believe, up in Enfield. It was end of October, so it was got a good time for early evening light. So yeah, it was just playing with the sun. So this is all daylight, and I was working with a couple of directors, Two Doors, who were shooting the moving image for this work, and I was there as the photographer. So I was shooting over their shoulder. So yeah, it was good collaboration.
They look so good. It's really, really good images. I just love the light. It really well captured. Yeah. And then Carola mentions it in the chat as well, that if you've got somebody that's looking to change their career, so they've already built themselves up in another area and they're looking to move into photography, what would you recommend there?
I think best thing to do is literally work experience. But I think it's quite hard because work experience is obviously you're not getting paid. So I think the best way to do it is to either find studios. So I'm not sure whether they're based in London, but yeah, if you go and find a studio to try and work in, and they'll pay you kind of average wage. And from that, you'll probably be there from say 3 to 6 months. And then from there, you can carry on assisting freelance with photographers directly rather than in a studio. Otherwise, going directly into photography, I'll be honest, I'm not sure, purely because I haven't had the experience myself to be a full-time photographer just yet.
Oh yeah. And if you were to win the lottery tomorrow and you were to give all of this up, what would you want to be known for?
Oh, I don't know. That's a very tricky question. I'd still like to think that I don't think I would give it up. I think I'd still carry on and just. I say this. It probably happened for a few months, and then I'd end up on a desert island or something.
Yeah.
On a yacht, what I want to be remembered for. That is a very, very tricky question. I might have to come back to that question.
Cool. I mean, your sport photography is absolutely amazing. The way you capture the light across all of the projects that you've shared so far. Great work. Really great work. And the chat is really busy today. We've got a lot of other Adobe Live hosts in the chat as well. So we have Emma here and Tony and Tim, of course, asking lots of great questions. People are keen to know on if you are a Marmite person, by the way.
I'm a Marmite person. I'm weirdly in between. I don't love it and I don't hate it. I could have it on a bit of toast every now and then, but I don't. I couldn't. I know people that can just literally stick a spoon in Marmite and just go for it, or even stick their finger in. But yeah, I can do it on a bit of toast, but I don't love it. But then, yeah.
Oh, I love it. I do. Cool. So here we go. I'm just checking through the chat next. There's lots and lots of questions in here, which are really great. Definitely getting a bit random though. I mean, we've got cats or dogs, Photoshop or Lightroom. You know,
Dogs,
you mentioned
Photoshop.
Dogs and Photoshop. Well, there you go. Dogs and Photoshop. Because you mentioned InDesign. You use InDesign to set up your portfolio.
Yeah.
And I can see, you know, in the image that you shared earlier on the bus shelter. I take it you use Photoshop then to edit that image and get that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I only use InDesign to kind of lay out my work after I've done the post processing.
Cool. And there's lots of, and even Rufus has joined us in the live chat today as well. So we have a lot of people. Tony asked, what was the version of InDesign that you first used? So what was that? What was the first version?
I think it might have been CS4.
Oh.
So yeah, going back. So I think I first started using it about 10 years ago. So when I was an intern with a photographer, he'd lay out all of his work, or all of his portfolio within that. So I think from there, that's how I just kind of grew, because you kind of learn quite quickly when you're on the job. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you didn't go down the university route, and that actually being an apprentice and being an assistant was the best way to gain experience and you know, build on your career. How did you learn the apps? How did you learn, you know, InDesign and Photoshop?
Just sitting and doing it, grafting through. And I'm still learning everything, but I think tutorials online as well have been a great help. And I know now, 10 years on from when I first started, that there's just so many more helpful tutorials out there. Because I remember when I first started, there wasn't quite that many. But yeah, I think tutorials, and then just the best way I learn is just to do something. I'm quite a practical learner rather than sitting and reading. I kind of just need to do it for myself. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. As Tim said, the University of YouTube.
Yeah.
That's how I learn.
I know.
It's so handy. Caroline asks, do you do any video or is it just stills?
I've started to do some video, yeah. I've got one film on here, but yeah, it's definitely something I need to kind of get into a little bit more. But when I did it, I think it's quite hard you need to split your brain from being a photographer and not picking up a camera to kind of directing. So I was fortunate. My brother was a camera operator on film and worked on various films. So myself and him kind of worked on that and just used the kit that I had. So yeah, but that is definitely something that I'll be going down towards. I think it's something that on a lot of commissions now, you need that expertise, and a lot of people ask for.
Yeah, and then earlier on you mentioned that you listened to some podcasts for cinematography to get you, you know, your creative juices flowing. Could you recommend any podcasts for other people to listen to?
So probably one of the world's best cinematographers, Roger Deakins. He's got a podcast, and each week he talks to a different cinematographer about a film, and it's not. They don't necessarily talk about latest films. It's not always about publicity. It is going back to the cinematographers or directors' passion project. And I think one of the most interesting ones actually was the talk they did about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So that's a cartoon, but just the thought process behind that was just amazing. And you totally take film for granted. I think, just the effort and work that goes into it is just, incredible.
Totally. It is fascinating, especially when you're watching things like the Oscars and you see the cinematography awards, and then suddenly it becomes really clear, you know, all of these amazing things that you might have been absorbed in a movie and missed it at the time, and then you watch the award shows and you're like, Wow, that is
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. And so, do you think that you'll go into cinematography then in the future?
I don't know. I don't know where the future will take me. I mean, I'd love to, but I think it's wherever everything is going. I think I need to make an active effort in moving image.
Yeah.
And then perhaps, that's maybe where I'll go.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, cool. You've said some great things here today, Sebastian. Your work is really good. There's lots of chat. The chat's been so busy. It's one of the busiest chats I've seen. Lots of great questions coming in. And I know that you've mentioned your kit. You've spoken a lot about your camera. You also mentioned earlier that you're on a Mac, right? You're down the Mac route, not PC. Is that right?
Yeah. I think that was, again, when I first started using InDesign, back when I first started assisting or on my internship, it was a Mac. So coming onto it, everything was backwards. But now it's just the workflows are so much easier for myself. But again, I haven't used the PC for over 10 years. So I mean, they could be all up to date and much easier. But I think it's just personal preference. It's a bit like Canon Nikon. The kind of Nikon argument. But yeah, you definitely see more of the creative industry using Mac.
Yeah, definitely preference. I'm PC. I don't think I could switch my brain to changing.
No.
Risk of my productivity.
Yeah. If that's what you're used to, I don't think changing a good thing is a very good idea. I think it's good to keep up with technologies, but something as big as a PC or a Mac is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as a photographer, I'm keen to learn. We've spoken about portfolio and how you set up and how you use InDesign to showcase your work. What about shows, like photography shows or like displays, that people often go to showcase their work on the bigger, to sell their work, right? And is that something that you do or are thinking of doing?
No, it's not something I'm thinking of doing yet. I know it's quite a common thing to do in advertising agencies. You can go in and almost do like a resident gallery just to make their kind of walls look a little bit nicer than their bare office walls. So that could be something I do in the future. But currently, no, I haven't got anywhere that I sell my work or have galleries.
Oh, I could totally see your work, especially the ballet. The pictures that you had there at some big, like Pinewood Studios or something in London, right?
Yeah.
Or some big entrance hall, right? I was walking in and seeing an image like that. It'd be great.
Yeah.
I definitely think you should. Cool. Well, there's lots of chat. People are chatting about the differences between Mac and PC, about switching. Definitely down to preference. I know we've got only about 3 minutes left, and so what tips can you share with us for people that are getting into photography? Anything that you could kind of summarize about our chat today?
I don't think you should be too focused on what kit you have. I think work with what you got, and I definitely have had that sort of hang up when I was younger, and still every now and then do. But you've just kind of got to work with what you've got. And then also just be prepared for anything that could happen. Just have a little backpack of just emergency items that you might come across. I think just being prepared is one of the key things, and using your initiative as well. So yeah, in your backpack you want a Leatherman, maybe some packet of nuts, some playing cards maybe. Just things to fill the time, but then also kind of practical things like fuses, Leatherman, as I said.
No. And what's your recommendation email look like? Like you mentioned earlier that you email out people to say, just show that you're available, just show that you want to be part of their project. Because I think it's always hard for people to sell themselves, especially if they're starting, because you want to show that you're keen. But obviously you don't have a lot of experience to fall back on, to a lot of things to show if you haven't got a portfolio ready. What kind of thing would you say in that email to get yourself in?
I think it's always good to talk about them before you talk about yourself. And I think you should really do your research. So rather than trying to send out a mass email to, I don't know, hundreds of people. I think it's better to just focus in on those areas that you want, but then also focusing on the work they've done that you like, and perhaps just kind of get into the nitty-gritty of details of that job that they have done. Talk about that, why you liked it, and then go on to introduce yourself and kind of your work, and maybe where your work fits in with their work.
Like it. It's good because you can show your passion then towards the projects that they've already made that they love themselves. So you're sharing that.
Exactly.
Very good tip. I think that's my favorite tip that you've given across this whole lifetime. I think that's really valuable. Thank you. Sebastian, this has been lovely. It's been really good to hear your process and about how to get started in the industry. Your work's amazing. There's been lots of appreciation for you in the chat today. And lots of people are asking, let's see some processes, let's get into Lightroom. So maybe we should have you back to do another chat in the future, on some more processes. Thank you for joining, and thank you for everybody in the chat for joining today. Great questions coming in. Thanks for the other hosts joining as well, Tony and Emma and Tim. It's been great having you as well. And we'll see you all soon. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.